On this episode of A Comic Book Orange, Warren Ellis and John Cassaday go planetary, Fallout Boy makes Fallout toys, and an unthinkable interview with writer Mark Sable.
Wow. Another great issue of Planetary by Warren Ellis and John Cassaday. Only one issue left. Should come out any day now. At last, the final issue of... Oh! That's not fair. That's not fair at all.
Planetary by Warren Ellis and John Cassaday follows the adventures of superpowered archaeologists of the strange as they unravel the mysteries of the 20th century. What mysteries? Try every story you've ever read. Sherlock Holmes, B-movies, superheroes. Turns out they were all real and covered up in a great conspiracy. Warren Ellis brilliantly mixes these old tales with modern-day events and scientific theories, such as giant radioactive monsters with Japanese death cults or pulp heroes and quantum computers. Guiding us through these ideas are the great characters, whose bitter sniping makes up half the fun. The other half is the amazing line work of John Cassaday. From ghost cops to deep space angels, Cassaday makes the impossible fiction into cinematic reality. Combined with Laura Martin's lush coloring, it's a feast for the eyes. The long-awaited conclusion to Planetary finally hits stores this week, but no matter how it ends, it's already a 5-orange masterpiece. Pick it and the collected volumes up today. Another 5 oranges goes out to Grant Morrison's Batman and Robin. Teamed with great artists, Morrison has the all-new dynamic duo face a new set of supervillains in Gotham. Fallout Boy's Pete Wentz helped create Fallout Toy Works by Brett Lewis and Sam Basri. The sci-fi tale of a genius robot maker and his cybergirl reads a bit scattered, but features some great art. It just started, so we'll reserve judgment and give it 2.5 oranges out of 5. And finally, previous A Comic Book Orange interviewee Paul Jenkins' final issue of his Captain America Theater of War series comes out today. Previous stories have been solid work, if a bit unsurprising. We give it 2.5 oranges. This week we're at Meltdown Comics in West Hollywood, California to interview Mark Sable, writer of Unthinkable, Grounded, and Two-Faced Year One.
So tell me, how did you get into comics?
I've always been a comics fan, but I started out actually with a screenplay that I had written. This was before superhero movies had sort of really hit big. My agent was just like, nobody wants to see an original superhero movie, so I just said, well, you know what, I want to make this however it gets made. And so I found an amazing artist named Paul Jenkins, who's doing the covers on Unthinkable. And I adapted my screenplay into a comic series called Grounded that Paul and I created. And it wound up just being a really big hit. And I wound up getting all this comic work. And I never thought I'd wind up in comics. But it's just proved to be so much more fun than working in either film or TV that although I'm happy to work in those mediums, nothing has been as rewarding as comics has.
So currently you're working on Unthinkable.
Yes.
Which you've got stopped at TSA for.
Yes.
Yeah, twice.
Twice.
Tell me about this.
So I was on my way from Los Angeles to New York and then on to Amsterdam. But as I went through, I had 2 copies of the book, but I also had the script for the 3rd issue. And without spoiling anything, some very bad things happen. And so the first page is a recap page. And if you look at it, it just says 9/11, terrorist, we're living in a police state, describing all these horrible things that have happened. And I just happen to get, those 4 S's you get when you go through security, which means you're going to get the extra search. And then I saw, oh, they're holding my script. And the minute I saw that, like my hand just went right to my head. And I was just like, oh no, how am I going to explain this?
Yeah.
And then they just sat there and read it for about, the whole process probably took about a half an hour.
So they did just let you through after reading the script?
Eventually, but they questioned me. I mean, literally, they were like, who do you work for? And things like that. I think it was just really hard to explain to somebody that, comics can be about things other than superheroes, let alone that somebody actually writes scripts for comics and that they're not just, somebody doesn't just fill in the word balloons after.
Yeah.
So that was the first trip, and then they hit me again coming back.
Do you have any dream titles that you'd like to work on?
I've done a lot of work for DC. I did Two-Faced Year One. I would love to do anything at Marvel, though. I was a Marvel kid growing up. Actually, the theme of my bar mitzvah was Marvel Comics.
Aww.
And somewhere, and I'm glad I didn't wear it, I have a very embarrassing shirt. It's a caricature of me in the Iron Man armor saying, I had a Marvel, and then Marvel is in all capital letters, marvelous time at Mark's bar mitzvah. We had like a caricaturist and everything. So I'm a huge Marvel fan and I love what they're doing. I'd also just, about half of my work, or maybe even more than that, has been creator owned. So I love to continue working for Boom and doing some things, and Image has been great to me. And think one of my dream things is doing a Vertigo title.
For more information on Mark Sable, check out his blog at marksable.blogspot.com or follow him on Twitter as @MarkSable. Well, that's it for this week. Don't forget you can subscribe to our show free on iTunes, YouTube, or an RSS reader of your choice. Go to acomicbookorange.com/subscribe for details. And I'll see you next week for another episode of A Comic Book Orange.
I'd almost rather interview you.